My parents forced me to fund my sister's wedding while I struggled, so I walked away and left them begging for my presence. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one expected to put family first, especially when it came to my younger sister, Emma. Growing up, I was never allowed to be tired, angry, or overwhelmed. If Emma was upset, the world stopped. If I was upset, I was being dramatic or ungrateful. My parents painted her as delicate, emotional, and in need of protection, while I was told to be the man of the house before I even hit puberty. When I got into college, I worked full-time while taking classes just to afford my dorm and books. Emma? My parents paid for her private university, gave her a new car, and even covered her rent in a downtown apartment. I was told, she's not like you. She's sensitive, as if being sensitive meant being spoiled. I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting, but I brushed it off. I told myself this was just how families worked. Some of us gave more. That's what love meant, right? After graduating, I landed a decent job, but needed a second one to stay afloat. Even then, I still sent my parents money whenever they said they were tight. I never questioned it. I was their son, and sons provide. But the shift started when Emma got engaged. There was no big announcement, no family dinner. Just a photo on Instagram of her flashing a ring. I liked the post and moved on. Until one night, as I passed by the kitchen, I heard my mom whisper to my dad, "Don't worry, he'll take care of it like he always does." I froze in the hallway, heart sinking. Take care of what, exactly? And why did they sound so sure? I walked into that family meeting with the same mindset I always had. Stay calm, be helpful, don't make things harder. But the moment I sat down, I felt this weird heaviness in the air, like everyone had already agreed on something except me. Emma was glued to her phone, smiling at pictures of dresses. My mom had that overly sweet tone she used whenever she was about to ask for something huge, but pretend it was small. My dad cleared his throat and said, "So, Emma's wedding is in 6 months." I forced a smile. "That's great. Congrats again." My mom slid a printed paper toward me. "We need you to cover these." I blinked. Cover what? The list was long. Venue deposit, photographer, DJ, decorations, and Emma's wedding dress. The total was just over $20,000. My stomach dropped so fast, it felt like the floor shifted under me. "Mom, Dad, I don't have this kind of money," I said quietly. My mom frowned, as if I'd personally insulted her. "You always figure things out. You're the responsible one." Emma finally looked up. "It's my wedding. You're supposed to help. It's the least you can do." That line hit harder than I expected. The least I can do? After years of working, double shifts, and sending money home? This was the least? I tried to push back. I'm already barely getting by. I can help with something smaller, but not this. My dad's expression hardened. "Don't be selfish. Your sister deserves a beautiful day." That word, selfish, echoed in my head like an accusation I'd been trained to fear. I felt myself shrinking, folding, giving into a role I never chose. I didn't agree, but I didn't say no either. I just nodded slowly, feeling like a trap had quietly snapped shut around me. As I drove home that night, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles hurt, one thought kept repeating in my mind. If this is only the beginning, what else are they planning to dump on me? The first payment nearly wiped out my checking account, but I told myself it was fine. I could work more hours. I could cut back. I could figure it out, just like everyone assumed I always would. That was the dangerous part. I'd been conditioned for so long to stretch myself thin that I didn't even recognize how close I was to breaking. Within a month, I was skipping meals without realizing it. I started selling things I cared about. My gaming console, my bike, even the watch my grandfather gave me when I graduated. Every dollar went straight toward Emma's wedding fund, and not once did anyone ask how I was managing. The group chat was filled with messages about color palettes, flower arrangements, and seating charts, while I was calculating which bill could be safely paid late without losing service. One night, after working a late shift, I came home to a dark apartment because I'd forgotten to pay the electric bill. I remember sitting on the floor with my phone flashlight on, eating cold leftover rice, and feeling something inside me crack. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. But instead of reaching out to anyone, I opened the wedding expense sheet and updated the numbers like a machine. That was my role. Provider, fixer, the one who doesn't get tired. A week later, Emma called. "Hey, did you pay the deposit for the dress fitting?" I swallowed. "Yeah, I did." "Well, you're late." They said they didn't get the full amount. I explained I had sent exactly what was listed. She sighed dramatically. Ugh, this is stressful. Can you just double check? I don't want any issues. No thank you, no concern, just expectation. As I hung up, I stared at my nearly empty bank account and felt a wave of resentment so sharp it scared me. Yet, even then, I pushed it down. I told myself it would get better, but deep down, something whispered, they're just getting started. It was a Wednesday night, and I was on my second double shift of the week. My eyes burned from lack of sleep, and my hands were cramping from hours of stocking shelves. I bent down to lift a box, and suddenly everything spun. My knees buckled, and I hit the floor hard. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard a voice, calm but sharp. Hey, are you okay? I looked up and saw Maya, one of the new hires, crouching beside me. She handed me a bottle of water and helped me sit up. I tried to laugh it off, but I was trembling. I'm fine, I muttered. Just tired. She didn't buy it. You almost passed out. That's not just tired. Something in her tone cracked through me. I hadn't heard genuine concern in so long that it caught me off guard. She sat with me in the back room while I regained my strength, and before I knew it, the words spilled out. About the wedding, the money, my parents, Emma, every detail. When I finally stopped, she looked at me, eyes wide but calm. Wait, she said. You're paying for your sister's wedding while living like this? I shrugged. She's family. No, she said. That's not love. That's emotional blackmail. I didn't say anything, but her words hit harder than anything my family had ever said to me. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on my mattress, staring at the ceiling, Maya's voice looping in my head. I started writing, just for myself. A list of everything I'd given up over the years. Every sacrifice. Every time I was told to man up, while Emma was coddled. By the end of it, I didn't feel noble. I felt used. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself, what if I stopped playing the part they wrote for me? The next time I visited my parents' house, I noticed a folder left open on the dining table. I hadn't planned to snoop. Honestly, I was just grabbing a glass of water, but the heading caught my eye. Joint family account, wedding expenses. My chest tightened. I skimmed through the pages and found something that made my stomach turn. There was money, plenty of it. Savings accounts, certificates of deposit, even a fund Emma's fiancé's family had contributed to. All untouched. Tens of thousands just sitting there. Meanwhile, I was drowning in overdraft fees and eating discount instant noodles for dinner. I took a picture of the summary page before anyone noticed. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the screenshot. My head was buzzing. They had the money all along. I wasn't saving the family. I was just their backup wallet. The next day, I confronted them. I brought the photo up on my phone and slid it across the table. My mom's eyes barely flickered. That money is for emergencies, she said. I kept my voice calm. I'm working 2 jobs, living on fumes. Isn't that an emergency? My dad scoffed. You're doing fine. You don't have kids to support. You're just being dramatic. Emma chimed in from the couch, completely unbothered. Why are you making this about you? It's my wedding. That sentence hit like a slap. I wasn't family. I was a service. A silent investor in someone else's fairy tale. I stood up, heart pounding, trying not to scream. I looked around at the people who claimed to love me and realized they weren't confused about what they were doing. They were counting on me never fighting back. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I could keep pretending this was love. A week later, Emma's fiancé, Jason, called and asked if I could meet him for a drink. He sounded nervous, like someone rehearsing lines in his head. I figured he wanted to talk about the bachelor party or something stupid like that. But what he said over that beer changed everything. He stirred his glass and said, Hey, I just want to make sure you're okay with all this. I know it's a lot. I nodded slowly. It is, but I'm managing. Then he blurted it out, fast and awkward. We're not actually signing the papers yet. I stared at him. What? He looked down. Emma doesn't want to get legally married right now. She says she's not ready for all that. She wants the ceremony, the party, the pictures. But we're not filing anything official until later. I sat there, stunned. I couldn't speak. I just blinked at him while my brain tried to make sense of it. Jason kept talking, nervously. She said it's just a formality, that the day still means something emotionally. Emotionally? I was choking on debt for an emotional gesture. All that sacrifice. For a show. No legal marriage. No binding commitment. Just optics. A fantasy. Bought with my exhaustion and silence. I didn't even finish my drink. I walked out of the bar and into the cold night air, hands shaking. On the bus ride home, I thought about every sacrifice I'd made since the day Emma got engaged. The sleepless nights, the cold dinners, the second job, the lies. And now, the truth. It was never about building a future. It was about looking like they had one. I realized then, I wasn't just funding a wedding. I was funding a performance. And I wasn't sure how much longer I could sit quietly in the audience. After that night with Jason, something inside me snapped. Quietly, but completely. I didn't rage. I didn't argue. I just started planning. If they wanted a perfect wedding without me asking questions, I'd give them exactly that. But it would be the last thing I ever gave them. I kept pretending everything was fine. I smiled in the group chats, sent money when asked, and RSVP'd to every event. But behind the scenes, I was unraveling the ties they'd wrapped around my life. I canceled my apartment lease and moved essentials into a storage unit under a new name. I started redirecting my mail to a friend's address. I updated my resume, cleaned up my bank accounts, and told my second job I'd be quitting after a family event. I wasn't disappearing. I was preparing for freedom. And most importantly, I wrote. I poured every memory, every receipt, every manipulation into a letter, 5 pages long. I detailed every sacrifice I made, the money I gave, the things I sold, the nights I broke down. I wrote about the account I found, the real wedding plans, Jason's confession. I included the screenshots, the timelines, the receipts. Then I scheduled that letter to be emailed to our entire extended family, exactly 2 hours after the wedding ceremony began. Maya helped me proofread it. She didn't say much. She just looked at me and whispered, "You deserve to choose yourself." The night before the wedding, I turned off my phone. I packed a bag, and for the first time in my life, I felt calm. Not because things were okay, but because I finally had a way out. I wasn't scared of what would happen next. I was finally ready for it. Because the real performance wasn't the wedding. It was the mask I wore for 28 years, and I was about to take it off. The wedding started at exactly 4 p.m., just like the invitation said. But one seat, the one marked brother of the bride, remained empty. I wasn't there. I was sitting on a quiet cliffside 2 hours away, watching the ocean crash against the rocks. No suit, no tie, just jeans, a hoodie, and peace. I imagined the moment they realized I wasn't coming. The forced smiles, the awkward glances, the growing whispers. But that wasn't the storm. Not yet. At 6:05 p.m., exactly as planned, my email went out. To my parents, to Emma, to Jason, to all the uncles, aunts, cousins, and family friends who had no idea what had been going on behind the scenes. It wasn't angry. It wasn't cruel. It was honest. 5 pages of truth. The money I gave, the lies I was fed, the nights I went hungry so Emma could have custom floral arches. I attached receipts, screenshots, bank statements. I even included Jason's confession about the wedding not being legally binding. Within 20 minutes, my phone, still off, started buzzing nonstop in my backpack. I didn't check. I just listened to the waves and let the world burn without me. Later, Maya called. Her voice was shaky from laughing. "Your cousin Michelle read the whole email out loud during dinner. It was chaos. Half the guests left. Your uncle called your dad a parasite. Jason's parents stormed out." I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just exhaled. All those years I stayed quiet. All the times I swallowed my pain so they could stay comfortable. And now, the silence had broken louder than any scream. The seat they saved for me stayed empty. Not because I forgot, but because I finally remembered who I was. And I wasn't their scapegoat anymore. The fallout hit faster than I expected. The next morning, I turned my phone on and watched it light up like a fireworks show. Dozens of missed calls, voicemails, and texts. The first was from my mom. "How could you humiliate your sister like that?" The second, from Emma. "You ruined everything. I hope you're happy." My dad didn't bother with words, just a string of missed calls, one after another. But the messages that stuck with me were from people I never expected to hear. From cousins I hadn't seen in years, aunts who always stayed quiet. "I had no idea you were going through all that." "They always did treat you unfairly." "I'm sorry we didn't say anything sooner." Maya called again that evening, her voice low and careful. "You okay?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. "Yeah, just feeling everything at once. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one being guilted into silence. I was the one people were finally listening to. The story had reached Emma's in-laws, and according to Maya's friend who worked catering, Jason's parents were livid. They felt duped, manipulated. They left before dessert was served and made it clear they wouldn't be funding anything going forward. Emma went on Instagram and posted a black and white photo of her bouquet with the caption, "Betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from blood." But instead of sympathy, the comments were brutal. "Sounds like your brother paid for that bouquet. Maybe don't use people next time? Accountability hurts, huh?" I didn't respond to anyone, family or not. I needed space. I needed time. But I did send one group message to my parents and Emma. "If you want to speak to me again, start with an apology, not a demand." Then I turned off my phone again, not to escape, but to breathe. Because for once, the silence was mine. After years of living for other people, I finally started living for myself. The first thing I did was quit the second job. I walked out of that store, head high, shoulders back, and didn't look back. I had enough saved to hold me for a while, especially now that I wasn't bleeding money for a wedding that wasn't mine. For the first time in a long time, my evenings were quiet. No alarms, no exhaustion, just space. I picked up my guitar again, dusted off old notebooks filled with songs I used to write in college before life became survival. It felt strange, relearning who I was outside of their expectations. Maya helped me organize my finances. We sat at my kitchen table with spreadsheets, credit reports, and calculators. She didn't judge, she didn't push. She just said, "Let's fix what they broke." One afternoon, I booked a therapy session. I'd never done it before, never felt allowed to, like mental health was a luxury. But sitting in that quiet room, talking to someone who wasn't trying to guilt or manipulate me, felt like taking my first full breath in years. We talked about boundaries, about patterns, about the boy I was raised to be, the fixer, the emotional mule, the invisible backbone of a family that only loved me when I gave something. And I made a decision. I wasn't going back. No more monthly payments to my parents. No more being on call for Emma's needs. No more reshaping myself to fit into their hollow definition of family. I even started looking at new cities, places where no one knew me as the responsible one, just me. Because reclaiming my life didn't just mean cutting them off. It meant rebuilding something in their place, something honest, something mine. And for the first time, I realized peace doesn't feel loud. It feels quiet, safe, and earned. It started with a letter, a real, physical letter in a cream-colored envelope with my mother's handwriting on the front. It showed up a week before Christmas, tucked between a pizza flyer and a utility bill. My heart thudded the moment I saw it. For a second, I almost threw it away, but I opened it. Curiosity, maybe weakness. Inside was a long note, written in blue ink, full of phrases like, "We didn't realize how much we hurt you," and "Family makes mistakes, but family forgives." She asked me to come home for the holidays, said Emma missed me, said my dad cried. The man who used to call me weak when I so much as frowned. It felt less like an apology and more like a PR campaign. Not once did she mention the money, or the manipulation, or the years I spent breaking myself to keep the family running. Just a vague, polished plea for togetherness. Then Emma texted, "I know we've had issues, but I don't want to lose my brother forever. No, sorry, no ownership, just a soft trap and prettier words." I didn't respond right away. I let the message sit. I talked it over with Maya. I talked it over with my therapist. And eventually, I wrote a letter back. Not because I owed them anything, but because I needed to end this on my terms. I kept it short. I'm not ready to return. If we ever rebuild anything, it will be from a place of honesty, not guilt. Until then, I need distance. Please respect that. No emotion, no drama, just truth. I folded it, sealed it, and dropped it in the mailbox without a second thought. Because after all these years of begging for their approval, they were the ones begging now, and I'd never felt lighter. I used to think closure meant everyone hugging it out, that one day we'd sit around a table, cry a little, and finally understand each other. But I've learned that real closure doesn't always look like that. Sometimes it's a locked door that you never open again, and sometimes the healing doesn't come from what they say. It comes from the silence that follows when you stop giving them access. In the weeks after I mailed my final letter, the calls and messages trickled down to nothing. No surprise visits, no manipulative guilt bombs, just quiet. And it wasn't empty. It was peaceful. I deleted the shared family drive, erased the wedding receipts, unfollowed Emma, my parents, the cousins who stayed silent while I burned. I made space, literally and emotionally. Maya and I took a trip to the same beach I sat on during the wedding, the one where I chose myself for the first time. We stood there at sunset, the sky stained with gold and fire, and I told her, "This is where I stopped being their version of me." She didn't say anything. She just reached for my hand. I won't pretend everything is perfect now. I still flinch when my phone buzzes. I still have moments where I wonder if I went too far. But then, I remember the hunger, the exhaustion, the empty bank accounts, and emptier conversations. I remember how they smiled when I was suffering, because my suffering served them. And I know I did the right thing. Walking away wasn't easy, but staying would have destroyed me. So this is my goodbye. Not the one they wanted, but the one I needed. No drama, no speeches, just distance, peace, and power. And this time, I keep it all for me.